Clemson's Greatest Games is brought to you by Roto-Rooter. When you need a local plumber fast, call Roto-Rooter. And by First National Bank. Find a branch or ATM near you at fnb-online.com.
From the pocket, looks down the field at Theon Kane, and he collects it for a Clemson touchdown. Clemson in the pocket, shoots it downfield for Kane again, who makes a diving catch for a touchdown. And taking a shot, losing the ball. Clemson's got it. Watson keeps it, pitches it across the middle. Touchdown, Williams. Forsyth out of the backfield, didn't see him and throws a pick. Slant, Scott fights free and walks in. A 1-2 punch from the Tigers.
Florida State versus Clemson 2011, the Tigers taking on the Seminoles. And back in this time frame, whenever the schedule came out, you always looked where Florida State was in the schedule and you circled it, because Florida State was the king of the ACC at this point. And the Tigers knew that if they wanted to take the next step as a program, they're going to have to consistently start beating the Seminoles.
Growing up a Clemson fan, I know how significant that rivalry is against Florida State. Obviously, they've always been a powerhouse team, a team we always want to beat. The emotions going into it, the new Sweeney era, trying to, set the tone and trying to, show the world that, we're not here to play around. We can, beat the best of the best. And obviously Florida State is one of the best.
We all hate Florida State, just to be very clear. Anybody who plays any sport at Clemson or even goes to Clemson or is a Clemson fan, especially in 2011, earlier years when I was a student athlete, because Florida State they're really good at a lot of sports. I mean, they're good at a lot of things. And especially in football, as I talked about with that history with Clemson and Florida State, it just feels like things don't go Clemson's way most of the time.
So the Florida State game of 2011 was a landmark game in that it was the middle game of 3 consecutive wins over top 25 teams.
We had Auburn, we had Florida State, we got Virginia Tech coming up, and we definitely took games one by one, but we knew that this was going to have a big implications on how our seasons would be in 2011.
I was working, and here we are bringing in recruits that we hope are going to say, this is where I want to spend the next 3 or 4 years of my football career here at Clemson University. So this was a big game coming into it, recognizing you've got eyes of players that you want to nail down. Leading up to it, we knew that there was a lot on the line for the specific recruits that we had in on that game. And be clear, the recruits that you have in on a game like that are the guys that you really, really want.
So a lot of the talk the week of the game was whether or not E.J. Manuel, the starting quarterback, who went on to be a first-round draft choice in the NFL, whether he was going to play or not for Florida State. He had suffered an injury the previous week against Oklahoma, and while he came to the game, he did not dress and kind of was able to lend his expertise as a assistant coach, so to speak, that day for Florida State.
Being a St. Augustine, Florida native, man, being a Florida State fan growing up, every Florida team I took as, that was my South Carolina game. That was my rivalry game. So I had 2-3 rivalry games in a season, and Florida State was definitely one I always looked forward to. Didn't get an offer from Florida State, didn't get seriously recruited. So I tried to play with an extra chip and an extra edge when we played Florida teams, and Florida State was an annual game for us.
Florida State still had an aura, and getting a win against Florida State was going to tell you something about who you were. Now, keep in mind, a week before, they'd lost a tough game to Oklahoma, a game in which the Oklahoma defense stepped up, and as it turns out, small world, had a coordinator named Brent Venables who did a good job that night in Tallahassee. So they were smarting from a loss, so they came in extra hungry, extra desperate, but of course without E.J. Manuel. But 2011, Florida State still carried the same resonance as they did beginning in the mid-'80s when they started knocking everyone off in the world and became a national title contender every year, not to win it until 1993, but they became that brand name. That was completely front and center, still their brand in 2011.
Florida State to me was college football. You know, there's only so many teams that when you think of college football, you think of a particular university. They're one of them.
Founders Federal Credit Union is your credit union. We are devoted to serving you through good and bad, and through highs and lows. We are committed to standing by you, our members, our communities, our family. Together, we can persevere through these times. We are your credit union, and we are here for you. Relax with Founders Federal Credit Union.
My dad was a Cuban refugee, and school wasn't really an option for him. He'd always encourage me and my sisters. He'd say, try different things, If you want to be an artist, if you want to be a painter or musician, go for it. Because I received a South Carolina Education Lottery Scholarship, I didn't have to worry about the bulk of my tuition. And that's priceless.
Roto-Rooter Zero Contact Service is your assurance that we're putting safety first. On the job, we'll keep a safe distance, wear boot covers, face masks, disposable gloves, and other protective gear. We're following CDC guidelines, washing hands, and disinfecting touch points. And we'll put on fresh gloves before handling your paperwork and credit cards. You can depend on Roto-Rooter to lead the way in safety with Zero Contact Service.
There's some optimism coming into the 2011 season. There's also some questions. You've got some unknown entities. Chad Morris, his first year as offensive coordinator, Taj Boyd taking over as quarterback, and there's also a portion of the fan base that's not 100% convinced that Dabo is the right choice as head coach. And when you look at the schedule, you see this daunting 3-game stretch. Auburn, Florida State, Virginia Tech. And wins against Auburn and Virginia Tech would obviously tell you a lot about your team and what might happen for the rest of the season. But the true measuring stick, it was Florida State. I mean, these are the Seminoles. This is a team that's one of the top programs in all of college football. And for almost 2 decades, they've dominated the conference. And everybody knew if you wanted to win the ACC, especially coming out of the Atlantic Division, you had to beat Florida State. And that's why in this game, the Tigers had to set the tone early.
So everybody was kind of wondering how Clint Trickett was going to play in this type of atmosphere, 82,000 Clemson fans rooting against him. And then from the opening kickoff, he took them right down the field. And they ended up getting a field goal, so Florida State took a 3-0 lead. Then the Tigers came back as Taj Boyd continued his fine passing, and we hit Sammy Watkins over the middle with a 24-yard touchdown.
Boyd in the shotgun, set to fire. His pocket holds for him, he throws a strike to Watkins, touchdown.
When Florida State scored, we knew pretty early on that we had to respond, just for the morale, for the tempo. If we didn't, I don't know how this game plays out, to be completely honest, because we needed something to latch on to, something to hold on to.
What I remember specifically was Sammy Watkins. That guy, I still believe he is the most electrifying player to play at Clemson. And let's not forget, the guy was a freshman. He had just shown up.
It's kind of like having a cheat code. Having Sammy Watkins is kind of like having a cheat code. And you usually only pull out the cheat codes when you need them, right? So from a defensive perspective, it was like he always came through right on time when we needed him the most.
As Dabo Swinney loved to do, he came right back immediately with a long bomb and trying to catch Florida State while they're a little bit down after not stopping the Tigers. There were a 50-yard pass to Nuke Hopkins that set up a touchdown run by Taj Boyd.
Behind 30 deal. It is the quarterback for the touchdown. Taj Boyd has thrown one, and he sneaks in for one.
But then Trickett came back for Florida State and got a touchdown by the end of the quarter. He threw a 57-yard touchdown pass, and so it was 14-10 at the end of the quarter. The Tigers drove for a big touchdown as Taj Boyd completed a pass to Dwayne Allen, who was rapidly becoming the best tight end in America. And of course, he would win the John Mackey Award by the end of that season. It was a tough run as he got into the dove into the end zone, and this was one of the hardest hitting games, certainly of that season and many of any season we've had at Clemson.
Watkins all in there as wide receivers. That's Watkins in motion. Boyd throws on the runs, got his man, the tight end, touchdown, Dwayne Allen.
So it was 21-10, and that score came with 11 minutes to go in the second quarter, and that was it for scoring in the first half. Both teams moved the ball, but there was no further scoring.
Even with missed scoring opportunities there in the first half, heading into the locker room up 21-10 against Florida State, you had to feel really good. Offense was playing well, defense was playing well, but everybody knew in the back of their minds, this is Florida State. Florida State's not going to go down without a fight.
This segment was brought to you by First National Bank, helping businesses and individuals achieve their financial goals.
We're behind people rising to the challenge and neighbors looking after neighbors. We're behind small businesses with big ideas and struggling companies looking towards tomorrow. At First National Bank, we're behind every part of our community. We're working around the clock to ensure you have all the financial guidance and resources you need. And no matter what the future holds, you'll find us right where we've always been, behind you all the way.
Don't wait for tomorrow. Make the days count. Gatorade has carbs to fuel and electrolytes to help replenish, so you can count on the proven formula. Nothing beats Gatorade.
Coming out of the locker room at halftime, up 21-10, confidence was high. You get the ball in the beginning of the third quarter, but this is Florida State. You know that they've probably made some adjustments, and the one thing that you can't do is come out and make a mistake.
I see Sammy sitting over there like this, or in the comeback, you know? And I'm like, all I gotta do is flip it out there. But as I'm trying to gather myself to get the ball over there to gain the momentum, I start to stumble forward, man. I know I'm going down. I try to throw the ball anyways. Bjorn Warner scoops it out of the air, scores a touchdown, and I just look defeated.
So now it's 21-17, and all the momentum has kind of switched. And actually, the Tigers then took a 28-17 lead with 3 minutes to go in the third period. It was a touchdown by Andre Ellington, but you should take note of the key block that Philip Price threw on this play.
Again, the fullback and the tight end in the backfield. But again, it's Ellington, and he's in. Touchdown, Tigers.
Watch Philip Price just take this whole side and crash it down. Now, Dwayne Allen is going to come out but not really get a block because the block by Price was so good he blocked two defenders, and Ellington was able to get into the end zone.
So the third quarter ended with Florida State driving. And they got to the Clemson 30-yard line when the period ended. Then on the first play of the fourth quarter, Trickett found Rashad Green for a 30-yard touchdown to make it 28-23. So Florida State decided to go for two to cut the margin to 3, but the Tigers were able to hold, and it remained 28-23. Then the Tigers came back, and Taj Boyd continued his passing expertise. He would end this game with 344 yards passing. But once again, he found Sammy Watkins on a 62-yard touchdown catch. It was a beautiful double move by Watkins, who caught the ball and was streaking down the Clemson sideline for that touchdown.
Against this defensive front.
On third down, pump fake. Boyd going long for Watkins, and he's gone.
For Sammy Watkins, I think the word explosiveness fits him well because he exploded onto the scene and he goes from 0 to 60 faster than anyone I've ever seen. So he runs the slant and then go, and he goes from this direction, faking the slant, to going full speed up the field, and Taj drops a dime, and he just makes it look so easy, just transition from catch to full speed, and he's in the end zone.
Clemson fans knew Sammy Watkins was coming in, but no one expected him to do what he did. He almost won those games by himself, but whenever I think of Sammy, I just think of getting him the ball in the screen pass, and he's just gone. I mean, you blink and he's gone.
Sammy put the Tigers up 35-23, pretty comfortable lead in the fourth quarter, but Florida State was not going to give up, and especially Trickett, who really showed us something that day. And so the Seminoles took over on the Clemson 19 with 2 minutes and 49 seconds to go in the game. So Florida State ran a couple of plays, got to a 4th and 4 situation, and they had a penalty, a legal procedure penalty. That made it 4th and 9. So the Tigers could really pin their ears back on the defensive line, and on the 4th and 9 play, Rennie Moore got through.
Does he have a trick up his sleeve? 4th and 9. Pressure. Down he goes.
That last possession, and you knew it was going to kind of come down to that, man, to watch our defense step up and to be able to perform and close out a game, man, that was one of the best feelings ever. And that really gave us a confidence and a boost kind of for the rest of the season.
The crowd was so in tune that he lost control or a sense of where he was at. Rennie Moore steps through. Brandon Thompson comes in, sack him.
And I do remember Clemson's defense, again, trying to continue to prove that they could be the stud defense, the tougher team in the trenches on both sides of the line of scrimmage. But I remember the defensive line continuing to hassle and rattle Trickett throughout that game. And that last series, to me, was as good of a showing to that point in the season.
Dabo and Chad Morris had two challenges going into this game. One, beat a top team like Florida State, who has dominated the ACC, and two, prove the doubters wrong that this team in their hands was heading in the right direction.
This segment was brought to you by Roto-Rooter. When you need a local plumber fast, call Roto-Rooter.
Roto-Rooter Zero Contact Service is your assurance that we're putting safety first. On the job, we'll keep a safe distance, wear boot covers, face masks, disposable gloves, and other protective gear. We're following CDC guidelines, washing hands, and disinfecting touch points. And we'll put on fresh gloves before handling your paperwork and credit cards. You can depend on Roto-Rooter to lead the way in safety with Zero Contact Service.
So what makes your house a home?
Sitting on the front porch, relaxing at the end of the day.
Hands down, my wife's spaghetti.
A sense of security.
I'd say making it my own.
Playing with my son, definitely.
Or whatever makes your house a home, we're here to protect it.
America, we want to help get you back to it. And here's how, with the Ford Promise. Visit your Ford dealer. Finance a new, certified pre-owned or used vehicle through Ford Credit, and if you lose your job, you can return it for up to 1 year from the day you bought it. You can also get 0% APR financing for 72 months across the Ford lineup. Let us help get you back to it. Contact your Carolina Ford dealer today for great offers including 0% APR financing for 72 months across the Ford lineup.
So the Tigers hold on to beat the Seminoles 35-30, a very big win for the Chad Morris offense. Back-to-back weeks performing against ranked teams, Auburn and Florida State. Also, Taj Boyd kind of coming into his own as a sophomore. And what can you say about Sammy Watkins as a freshman? 2 big touchdowns in this game. He was already establishing himself as one of the elite wide receivers in college football.
So you prepared the best way you could, but I remember that game just being an adjustments on the fly, being able to go in at halftime, being able to adjust different things. Sammy obviously had an amazing game in his kind of coming out game, and it was just a great game, and we knew that this game could be one that propelled us, especially in the ACC, but also in national ranks later.
I thought that Florida State win was huge because they proved that year that the Auburn win was not a fluke, and the Florida State win did that same thing. Then you beat Virginia Tech. Of course, you go on to win the ACC, and I feel like 2011 maybe doesn't get enough credit. I know it was the first ACC championship in so long, but it was such a big stepping stone for the Tigers, and I think that Florida State game specifically was.
We were on the sideline. I think Rennie Moore had a sack to win the game, to seal it off. And I remember the crowd being so loud, and I look at two of my buddies behind me, and they're literally crying. They were seniors, some of my buddies that were seniors, and they're just sitting there crying. So it just shows how much that game meant to like seniors who had never beat Florida State, who had never been in that moment. And as a freshman, I see that, and I'm like, man, this is special. Like, this is big time.
I can remember what a big deal that was for us. Florida State, they were giants then, right? And it was such a legacy of a school that had been created over decades. And here we were, a university on the rise, making our name now known to be what it is today. I think now, if you look back on it, people realize what was happening in that moment, right? You've got Taj Boyd, who went on from that day creating such a legacy for himself, and then Sammy, who we know had the wheels that could turn like nobody else. So we were able to see both of them display why they will be some of the greatest that ever played the game at Clemson.
That win against Florida State really validated us, and it kind of made us whole too. You know, again, we're talking about a very young football team. I mean, most of the guys all the skill players were freshmen, sophomores, you know. And so, you know, you're essentially telling the ACC, the rest of college football, like, hey, we're going to be here to stay. And so it was an opportunity for us to really cement ourselves, you know, in that moment and create this I don't even know how to explain it, you know, create this sense of belongingness, you know, to the rest of college, you know, to everybody that said, why would you go to school there? It's like, no, we came here for this, because whatever you think that these teams can do, we can do it better. And so that was that moment for us.
It seemed like the whole theme of that 2011 season was to make the offense better and more fluid than it had been the year before. It seemed like the sub-theme of that year was to show how tough of a team Clemson could be, because one of the things that had been the knock against them was they never were tough enough, and that was Dabo's mantra. Wanted to be the toughest team, and that day I think they showed they could be a really tough out for anybody.
So the Tigers win this one to remain undefeated on the season, back-to-back wins over ranked opponents, and this would be a springboard to the ACC championship game, where they would take down Virginia Tech, and Dabo Swinney would win his first ACC championship as a Tiger, and that's what makes this one of Clemson's greatest games.
Time's run out on the Seminoles. Let the party begin in Death Valley again.
Clemson's Greatest Games is brought to you by Roto-Rooter. When you need a local plumber fast, call Roto-Rooter. And by First National Bank. Find a branch or ATM near you at fnb-online.com.